Hi, this is Jay from Thinking Out Loud. I'm here at Randolph Area Food Shelf, and I'm here with Rachel and Annie. Can you guys please tell me a little bit more about yourselves?
Yeah. My name's Rachel DeStefano. I am on the board here at the Food Shelf, and I'm also on the volunteer committee.
And my name is Annie Hutchinson. I am a volunteer here at the Food Shelf and also help Rachel with the volunteer committee and help manage the social media.
Thank you.
Perfect. You want to start off with a question?
How long has the food shelf been in this building?
Oh, in this building, that's a good question. I know the Food Shelf has been around in the community since the 70s, but they were part of the church up on Main Street for several years, and then they were able to move into this building. And so I want to say that happened in the early 2000s, but I'd have to double check on that.
Wow.
It was before I started.
Yes. Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I remember when I was real little, no one really what the food shelf was, and me and mom had to go there one time.
Mm-hmm. Was it in this location?
No, it was near Bethany.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on
Okay.
Main Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been in town 29 years.
Wow.
And as far as I remember, the food shelf has always been here.
How many years?
29.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so I think probably around that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born back then, but
I don't.
do you think it's been that long?
No.
We'll have to find out and put that on our
I can follow up with you. I have it somewhere. It's just not in my notes here. This is an outdated version.
So can you Rachel tell us who the food shelf takes care of and what the process of coming in and getting food is like?
Yeah, sure. So the food shelf's main mission is just to make sure everyone in our communities has enough food to eat. And so we're open to everyone. We focus on the towns of Randolph, Braintree, Brookfield, and East Granville. And that used to be what we called our service area. But a couple of years ago, around COVID, we decided that we really wanted to be open to everyone. We all know in a place like Vermont, like you can live in a very rural community and people come to Randolph to shop at Shaw's. Why shouldn't they be able to come to Randolph and shop at the food shelf? Other towns nearby have a food shelf that may only be open like once a week or in some places even only once a month. So we really wanted to just expand access to our broader community. So the process to get food at the food shelf, we try to make it as simple as possible. Try not to ask too many questions, but we do have to report to the food bank how many people we see and how many household members. So you'll be asked for name and address so we can track what towns we're serving, and then how many people in your household and what ages those people are. And so that's all just for our statistics. And then it's pretty basic. You get a shopping list based on your family size, and Annie could speak to this more because she works in the storefront, but you choose what food items you would like. We have shopping carts and baskets. You can come in weekly for things like pasta and canned goods, and then you can come in every day for fresh produce and bread.
So a shopper can come in up to 4 times a week to shop everything but the produce, and then the produce you can shop like every day.
Yeah, so 4 times a month. So every week for all the other stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Once a week, and then every weekday. So we're open Monday through Friday.
Okay.
So that's a very good idea. I never knew someone could come here every day. Do you only do like food, or do you do like toiletries, paper towels, diapers?
That's a really, really good question. Annie, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it depends on what we have available in our warehouse at the time. With the time changing and things getting more expensive, we've had to reevaluate what we have available. So we do have some household items available, toothbrushes, diapers when we can get them. But it's not necessarily guaranteed that we're always going to have every household item. So it's really dependent upon the week and what we're able to get through donations.
How do you get donations?
People can come by when we're open to drop off donations. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we're open 3 to 5. Tuesday we're open 1 to 5. Thursday we're open 5 to 7, and we can write those down for you so you can put them.
Yeah, that would be great.
In like the comment section or something.
That'd be perfect.
But it is nice that we're open a fair, pretty good variety of hours so that folks can come in. But yeah, we accept donations right here.
What would be your dream donation sack? Like, what would be in it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that also really depends on the time of the month and what we're able to get.
Yeah, well, we have a wish list on our website. So usually when people say, what do you really want? Like, we want to donate to the food shelf. We usually direct people there. And things that are on that wish list are things like baking staples, like flour, and like salt, things like that. And then also canned soups. People really enjoy those, like brands like Progresso. Trying to think what else is on that website, like pasta sauce, just some of our more popular items that go really quickly. So that's always a good place to check. I think like 100% juice is on that list too. So that's good to check. But also what you were saying earlier and like what Annie was saying about the personal care items, like toothbrushes, like that would be very welcome donation too, because it's harder for us to source those things.
Reminds me, somebody gave me a bundle of toothbrushes, and I was supposed to bring them down when I brought the feminine packages, and I forgot. So I gotta reevaluate and find where I put them because I have those too. Who pays for the food that comes into the food shelf? Like, where's that money come from?
Yeah, so we are community supported. We get some grants from like the Vermont Food Bank or certain charitable foundations. So we are applying for grants all the time and looking for grants. But we also get a lot of the bulk of our money comes from the community. Folks are very generous. We send out a letter around the holiday season. So it's our annual appeal letter. So we get a lot of people donating money that way. And we also, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, like businesses as well. But those are our major sources of, town appropriations. So through taxes, people can elect to, like have different nonprofits on the ballot, and you can support those with tax dollars.
Do you guys deliver?
So right now we're actually piloting a home delivery program. We're keeping it really small to start and trying to reach people who need it the most and wouldn't otherwise be able to access the food shelf. So it's like at the very beginning stages. So we haven't really advertised it widely, but it's something that we know is a need in the community, and it became really apparent during COVID, and we're trying to figure out a way to do that in a sustainable way moving forward.
That was my next question. How has COVID affected the food shelf?
Oh my gosh, in a lot of ways. Anyone that was shopping knows that we made a bunch of changes to the storefront model to try to keep it really safe. So I think like a lot of organizations, we had to totally change our model for a couple weeks, and we went to bags of food so people couldn't come in and shop. And then as we started to understand more about COVID, we realized we thought we could do it in a safe way and let people shop again, because it was getting a little bit like stale. Like everyone was like, oh, this again, in the bags. So I think we made it so that only if like 4 or 5 folks could be shopping at once. Like that was one way. We put in like a barrier so that people wouldn't be sharing as many germs at the checkout counter. I think masks were available and required at one point. And then we also expanded our our hours and like let people shop from all over and shop weekly. That's when we started to make that change.
When people get checked out, what do they necessarily, how do they check them out?
You can speak.
Yeah. So shoppers come in and we give them a list based off of what their household size is. And so based on that list, it tells you how many of each food category you can shop for that day. On the shelf, it separates the food by category, so you can kind of correlate that with what's on your shopping list. And then you bring it to another volunteer who, just kind of checks to make sure that you're getting the right amount based off of your household size. And that's how the checkout process works. So you not only use the shopping list to shop for yourself, but the volunteers in the back will also use that to see where you're at.
Maybe after the interview, could we go through the shopper process?
I think that we had talked about doing that, yeah, and seeing, like, getting a tour of what was around there. I do have a question, like, how many people are on, like, payroll? Who are you all volunteer? Are you all on payroll?
We're all volunteers.
You're all volunteers.
We don't have an executive director. We don't have any paid staff. The only it's not payroll, but we pay someone to clean.
Okay.
So that's the one kind of service that but it's not an employee, and so we're all volunteers, which is kind of amazing to think about.
And how are the volunteers screened? Is it something they're elected through, or how do you become a volunteer?
So the process, so Annie and I actually are the volunteer committee together. So there's an application that people would fill out. So that's either on paper or on our website. You can fill it out and submit it electronically. Then we receive it and we'll reach out by email usually and say, hey, we received this. We'd like to set up a time to come down. We'll give you a tour. We do like an orientation. We give them a volunteer manual or handbook, which has a lot of information, and we try to just send them with that. And if they have questions, and that's where we talk about, what are your interests and your availability, and then what does the food shelf have open, to try to figure out how to match people. And that can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but
Are you open mornings at all, or only afternoons and evenings?
That's a good question. We're at this point only open afternoons and evenings. We've thought about adding morning hours, but that hasn't happened yet.
It's kind of nice that it's afternoon and evenings, just because that's when, like, people are getting out of work or people are getting out of school, or it's kind of all encompassing. But people like Jay, who are really usually inside the house at this time, and my son, who is like, dinner's at 4:30 and I'm in bed by 5:30, and so there definitely probably could stand to be a need for some of those people that are a little more based in the earlier part of the day.
No, I totally hear that. And we've done a community survey a couple years ago, and there was expressed the desire for morning hours. I think it's just trying to figure out which day to do it on, and we've talked about, should we open up on like a Saturday morning, and but one of the challenges is that we are all volunteers. So like a weekend would be pretty hard to staff 3 volunteers every weekend. So something to think about. So the mornings is something to consider.
I would think mornings it would be especially better because of Tri-Valley Transit. I use them every day, and I bet that would be a lot easier for people who use their services.
Yeah,
that's true.
I know we just had we partnered with them, and they have now created like a couple of different stops, like on Tuesday, like they'll be sure to come at this time and this time twice on our long day on Tuesday, because that was challenging, because you can get dropped off, but then you have to call usually to get picked up. And so now they're going to have 2 times where they will just come no matter what.
Part of their circuit. How long would it take from the time do you call them clients, customers?
We call them shoppers.
From the time a shopper enters the door and leaves the door? How
Amy,
long was
can
it?
you help with that?
Yeah, it really depends. So because we're run, kind of like a grocery store where people can just browse and pick things as they go through the storefront. It varies. So some people are only here for 5 minutes, or some people might be here for 15. One thing we have been enforcing lately, just because we have been really busy, is that we only allow 5 groups of people at a time. And so if there's 5 people shopping, some people may have to wait a few minutes before they are able to start shopping. But I would say in general, people are in and out within 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, have you found that the stereotype of the food shelf has changed?
Yeah.
I mean, so I can remember, I have a large family. I have 5 children, and they're very close in age. Right now, they're 27, 26, 22, 19, and 19. So they're all adults.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember utilizing the food shelf when they were much younger, and I still do on an occasion. I mean, we are one of the families that we get Social Security, and because we get Social Security, we don't qualify for food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. We don't make enough to live on or have a vehicle, but so there's other ways. So there's some months that I can't piece it together. But I never remember my mom getting food stamps or WIC or food shelf or anything. I remember a lot of game. Like we had venison and pigs that we raised and rabbits that we raised, and it wasn't really a need. So do you think financially that's what's changed in the world in the last 15, 20 years to make it so that people aren't able to feed? Or do you think it's just people are spending their money on, and it's totally okay to speculate, do you think people are just spending their money on things that aren't food because they can get food other places?
Yeah. It's a good question. I would say that to each individual, I can't speak for, everyone.
Right.
I think one thing that's helped to make a food shelf, or our food shelf in particular, more accessible is that we're trying to make it as easy and inviting to come down here. And so, I think that decreasing the stigma around food assistance is really helpful to allow people to feel like they can utilize the services if they need to. But so I guess that would be my main assumption about why it might be a bit more popular, is that there is that decreasing stigma. As far as the reasons why people have trouble affording food, I think that's kind of hard to speculate about, but I think certainly we've noticed the increasing food costs.
Yeah, it's insane. And I actually, for my family, I actually drive an hour to Aldi because I can get 2 weeks worth of grocery shopping done there for my family of 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I have 5 in my head now? 5 of us. I can shop there and get 2 weeks worth of food for $131.
Wow.
And that's buying my staples and, like some luxuries like coffee creamer and, multiple packages of cheese and, the things that really go. But I also try to buy my meat in the community. Because like Poulin and Daughters, they always have like their ground beef sale where it's like $100 for 25 pounds, but it ends up almost being like 30 pounds. It ends up being like this astronomical amount because it's not every package is 1 pound.
Right.
And it's worth it for me to do that, knowing that I'm supporting in town, but I'm also making a healthier choice than buying meat at the store. And I've noticed a couple of different times that we've come, probably within the last year, that you guys have actually had some of their hamburger and some of their meat, which has been great. Do they donate on a regular basis, or do they just donate or do people donate that?
Well, we often, the board has really made a commitment to support local farms whenever possible. So we always have to balance with the rising cost of food, like how do we get enough food to feed everyone, but also how do we get like high quality choices, and when we can we shift some of the money that we would spend outside the community to people in our community. So we work with a few different farms for vegetables in the summer and growing season, and then we also, whenever possible, we'll either buy like from local meat producers, or sometimes we get that donated, or like the processing is donated, which is very generous, super generous. And we love being able to do that. And I think that's also helped with the stigma. Like the food shelf isn't just about canned, name brand or generic brand things. Like we're trying to make it's like beautiful fresh produce from down the road, and supporting your local like cow farmer.
Can a hunter donate a deer for it?
That's a good question. Yeah, we've had to think about this a lot, and we've looked to the Vermont Food Bank in Barrie for their standards. So sometimes we have to just go with theirs, even when we want to be able to accept that. But basically what they say is that food that's donated, and that includes like meat or game, has to be like processed in a kind of like a certified area to maintain safety.
Or the FDA, whatever.
Yeah. So we've been able to get meat from certain places like the Royal Butcher and like Poulin, and but there was a person in Brookfield, I think, who offered us a deer, and we had to turn it down because we trust them, but when you have people's lives at stake, you have to err on the side of caution sometimes.
And there's certain things that go into consideration when you process an animal too, right? So it's not just so cut and dry as somebody shoots it and you process it and it's done and over with. It's a little more complicated than that, and the facility has to be clean, and and probably insured and whatever else they have to be. But I know that that's that's really big around Vermont, is what you can get with hunting. So it would be nice, but we also understand.
Do you only do like healthy foods, or can people like donate like candy, soda, cookies?
We have a nutrition policy. I think a few years ago the board was trying to decide like what stance to take. I think in general we want to be promoting and offering healthy foods, but healthy is also like a relative term and means different things to people. So like just as an example, we don't distribute soda because in our eyes, like there's like no nutritional value. I think you can make an argument with some other things that might be categorized as like sweets or whatever, that there is, some nutritional value. It's at least providing like some calories or some like good healthy fats maybe. But in terms of like soda, where you really can't, it's just sugar. We couldn't really defend that. And so we created some rules like that. Like we wouldn't distribute candy, but we have a relationship with Cumberland Farms in town where they donate things to us. And we don't turn away things like cupcakes or a cake, because we also understand that that's part of living a healthy life too, is celebrating with your loved ones. And if it's your child's birthday and you can come to the food shelf and get a cake.
Right. And like that you can't afford on your own.
Like there's value to that. So it's not a black and white answer. I think there's a lot of gray area.
So I have a question. When this is dating myself very, very long ago. So I was 18 when I first got married to my first husband, and we took a cooking class that was put on by Community Action at the time, but they were in conjunction with the food shelf as well, to get all the ingredients and stuff and send us home with each of the ingredients at the end of the night. And then if you completed I think it's 2 or 3 week course, you got a free crock pot. That's like really dating it,
I remember that.
That's like 21 years ago.
I remember, like, I almost think Marion Labonte did a course.
Yes.
Oh,
She did.
I don't
It
know who
was
that
Marianne
is.
Labonte.
Okay.
It was.
I
Yeah.
remember hearing about the crock
I
pot.
thought that was like within the last 10 years.
Oh yeah, but it has been an ongoing thing because my older kids that are 27 and 26 now were in Head Start
Wow.
when we did it. So I totally remember doing the crockpot course, but and I still love my crockpot. It's just like things. Has the food shelf ever thought about doing like recipes or things that can be done as a slow cooker or like I know we have the Veggie Van Go, which has been really super helpful for my family.
Yeah.
And they hand out once a month recipes and kind of they're all their surveys at the same time and whatever else.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice using the vegetables that are there. I mean, you probably couldn't do it because you don't know on the specific vegetables because you don't know the specific vegetables you're going to have at one time. But have you ever thought about putting something like that together?
Take this one or
Yeah,
okay.
go for it.
So we used to have this program called Recipe of the Month where we would create like bags with all of the ingredients you'd need to create a recipe. And then we stopped that. I don't know if it was around COVID. It might have been. And we haven't reinstated it yet, but it was a really popular program. I think like financially we're also just trying to like be more mindful of like
where the money
especially with rising food costs. So we've had to kind of put a hold on that. But I think what you're saying is a really good point. And we do have some like resources through the Vermont Food Bank in Barrie where they will send us recipes and then Annie posts them on our social media. So we get like one a month.
Oh, okay.
And they do try to highlight like vegetables, I think, like produce.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we'll get like little postcards from them that are pretty cool and we'll put them out on the produce table. So it's, not always like ever changing, but we probably could do better in that arena.
Well, even just like say you're making like a soup and it calls for black beans and just having a little note by the black beans. This is one of the ingredients that goes with the recipe that's on the
that's a really good idea.
Or whatever, I mean, I know from doing my cooking program on YouTube that some people didn't even know how to make scrambled eggs. And I just took that so for granted. I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful mother who taught me how to cook and explore cooking in general. I'm not afraid or timid by many things except for yeast rolls. So that's about the only thing that intimidates me because I very rarely get that right. But some people either don't have the means to kind of mess up something or don't have the just the wherewithal to kind of just invent something or do something even from a box. And I always say that even if you do something from a box, that can be doctored into making something else too. And something very, very simple like dump cakes. Dump cakes are very simple. I don't know if you've ever heard of a dump cake. You take 2 cans of your peaches that you have out here. You put them in the bottom of a 9x13 pan. You kind of dice them up into, right in the pan, dice them up into pieces. You take a yellow or white cake mix. You put it right on top of that without mixing it.
Oh,
just the mix.
I think I've had
and
this
then
before.
You take a half a stick of butter and section it on top of that. You cook it 350 degrees for about 25-30 minutes and you have like a peach cobbler.
Nice.
Takes very little.
Yeah.
Takes very little. Yes.
I just thought of an idea.
What is it?
With the 3 of talking to the 3 of you.
Yeah, what is it?
Could Thinking Out Loud partner with the food shelf?
For what?
And
to do what?
To do like a easy recipe of the month,
That'd
like dump cake, for example.
Really cool.
Using things that you find at the food shelf.
Yes,
that would be awesome.
That would be cool.
Would you be in? Would
that work?
Yeah.
Would any of us be? Yeah. You're not leaving us really right now.
I don't know.
No, I think that's an awesome idea.
No, I think that's an awesome idea too. The one thing I really, really like about Jay, I like a lot of things, but one thing I really like about Jay is he's always coming up with some great ideas, even if it's at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't message you that early. Trust me.
no, I usually respond to things on Facebook at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
That's the time
That's the time you're up, right?
I get up, but I get up around 6.
That's right.
I try to sleep at least 6 a.m.
I don't know, you and Brendan, you get up like at the butt crack of dawn.
Can we go to bed at the butt crack of dawn?
Yes. And what's the other thing? You both like more cream in your coffee than you like coffee.
Where's the podcast going?
I have to get my digs in with them because I was saying something about like Brendan went through an entire creamer, like the flavored creamers, like the vanilla. I get the sugar free, but he went through an entire thing in 2 days. And I'm like, how do you do that? He goes, I don't see a problem with it. And then I picked up his order from Dunkin' Donuts, and it looked like brown milk. It looked like chocolate milk.
To each their own.
I was like, okay, this is why he said he didn't see a problem with
Yeah.
it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions for them, or should we do our tour? Or do you want to have any other things that you want to offer up as information?
Ooh. I can't think of anything. I think the
only thing I would say is, in addition to our storefront, we also offer a program called SKIP program. So it's for school-age children over their February, April, and then summer break to get like a bag of food. So registration is live for that now. So that's the only other thing that I would say we offer that we didn't touch on.
And the registration is on the website.
On the website.
Can you tell us what the website is? And we'll also add it in at the end if you know it. Do you know it?
Yeah, the link off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's www.randolphareafoodshelf.org.
Okay. Right. And we'll put that at the top of our
good
pin it at the top of our broadcast too, because I think that's a really good program. I have always had a ton of kids in my house.
Mm-hmm.
I've always gotten calls from the school saying, hey, Amy, this kid has had a disagreement with their parents. They don't want to go home. They know one of your children. Can you take them for a couple of nights? Sometimes it's ended up being 6 months. Sometimes it's ended up being a year or two. My 22-year-old, I had a couple of his friends for a good year or two. I just, Colby, my one of my bonus kiddos, just had aged out of foster care at 18 and didn't have proper housing and didn't have a job and needed to finish high school. So he got along with one of my twins and he moved in he was with me almost 2 years. And he just got engaged and moved out. So this is the first time that I have 2 kids at home. But I've had, at one point in time, I've had 6 kids in my house at one point in time that were all 13, 15, 16, and 18. Wow. So yeah, I utilized the SKIP program for that. That was, and they were all boys. They've always been all boys. So it's definitely been an interesting feat, but with SKIP it was nice because then you could do sandwiches and then you didn't have to worry about if they were going hungry or not. They always
and that's
enough.
Another point I should highlight is all the food are things that are easy to prepare or snacks, so that kids, if they're
sorry to interrupt, but does the food shelf ever make sandwiches and put them in the cooler?
Sometimes we'll get donations from Cumberland Farms that are sandwiches, but we don't prepare any food here per se. It would have to come on a donation basis. But yeah, sometimes we do have ready to eat foods.
Can you think of anything else?
Not that.
Okay, so I'm gonna grab the camera. We have a shift in the camera, people. Don't get dizzy. And
go for a tour.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I'm gonna have to. I'll have to come back in here to.
Bring my phone in here and stuff.
All right. We gotta make sure the lights come on.
Yeah, I'm like, they're not one.
Where are they? Is it because of the? I think it's because of that partition. It didn't motion sense.
So Dr. Deeds still volunteer here?
Yeah, I think he's a volunteer still. Have you ever worked
subs,
with?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I've only ever worked with him as a sub.
Okay, yeah.
So I know one thing we didn't go over with what we were talking to you was about the commodities.
Yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the commodities?
Sure. So, the commodity food program is a USDA program. It's separate from the actual storefront foods that you can shop for. It is an income eligible program, and it's all self-reported, so you don't need to bring pay stubs or anything like that. But typically, when people come in and register for the first time when they're shopping, we'll ask them if they're interested in that program. You just have to fill out an application, and we keep a file here at the food shelf, and it'll just say on your account when you get checked in at this computer here in the front that you're eligible. It's something you pick up once a month, and the food package changes month to month. So
can people fill out the application online?
it's just a hard copy that we have here in the store.
And it's not very much of a process.
Yeah,
Right.
you just put in your contact information, circle what range of income you fall under, your household size, and then sign it. So it's pretty straightforward.
So this is all the commodities that you're offered. And then you come over here. You can see that the list, some of the things have been crossed off, and that means that they have run out of that product. So the rest of them, but if for a family of one or two, let's say you have a family of 3 to 4, you'd have 4 raisins, 2 apricot halves, 2 mixed vegetables, 4 garbanzo beans, 4 diced tomatoes, 2 collard greens. You would have had 2 cans of pork, 2 apple juices, cranberry apple juices, 2 almonds, 4 salmon, and 2 spaghetti. And then I think this was chicken quarters, and that you would have had 1 of those.
Do
Pretty good haul.
elderly and disabled have different budget limitations, income limitations, than
For the USDA program specifically?
or for the food shelf?
Well, there's actually no income requirements for the food shelf, so you don't have to show proof of income, and anyone is welcome to shop here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a separate commodity food program for older adults, though, and that just comes in a box. So you wouldn't, if you qualified for that program, it would be different than the foods here.
Is that what Stagecoach delivered sometimes?
I think so. Yeah, the senior
Or
boxes.
Tri-Valley?
Yeah.
I always call it Stagecoach.
Yeah.
I know.
So what is in the commodities box for is it elderly?
For the senior boxes, I think it's 65 plus, right? But I don't know what's in it. Do you?
I don't know specifically. It's similar to the program we offer here in the storefront, where month to month it changes depending upon what those commodities are.
Okay.
So yeah, I can't speak to specifically what it is, but it's similar
Some
to
might be
their
similar,
program. It
yeah.
changes month to month.
Some variation.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, do you want to walk us through what we have over here?
Sure. So when you come into the food shelf, this is just the area that you would check in at. So there's a computer up here, which is where we would record your name, your household size, address, stuff like that. So each time you come in, you just stop and check in, and that way we can deliver you with the appropriate shopping list based off of your household size, which Rachel is grabbing. So this is what the shopping list looks like. So it's in reverse right now, but it just goes down the list. Has different categories of the food which correlate to what's here on the shelf. So for example, for a family size of 3 to 4, the first item is soup, which is the first item here in the storefront. And you get 4 cans of soup.
So they've got some, looks like Tuscan tomato soup.
Does that count as one soup, or since it is big, I thought that might count as two soups. So
Yeah, we go based off of quantity and not the
size,
number of ounces. Yeah.
Yep. So then you would walk down the line.
Yep.
I'm just gonna walk down the line here. And each thing is labeled. So the coffee or tea would be labeled. And for the family size.
Yep, and so it's listed both on the shelf and then here on the shopping list, how many of each food category you can choose. Sometimes we, like coffee and tea tends to be something that sometimes we have, sometimes we don't. So there will occasionally be empty shelf categories, but we really try to keep a wide variety of foods in the storefront.
Okay. And then this just goes through down here. Got some different things. Looks like the baking supply section.
say someone donated like a 50-pound bag of flour, would you divvy it up, or would that just be?
Yep, we'll divide up things that are in large quantities, or like sometimes in the summer we'll get like a large watermelon that we'll cut up. So there are situations where we have an area where we can cut up and prepare food into smaller quantities.
So if you had to think of one item that was a huge necessity that you always are lacking on, what would that be?
Like I said, it's hard to say just because it's so variable. Do you have any?
I would say like meat these days.
I was just gonna say the same thing. A few times that I've come in, the meat has been empty, or there's been one or two things. This is